Welcome to What's in Your Neighborhood, conversations for the shame shifter in all of us. I'm Melanie Vargas. After decades in executive leadership and coaching high performers, I've learned the real work happens in the parts that we hide. Each episode, I sit with leaders, rebels, and real people who've taken off their masks to explore their inner landscape, shaping how we live and lead. If you're ready for more truth, courage, and authenticity, you're in the right place. So let's go there. What's in your neighborhood?
Hi, I'm Kristal Roberts, co-host of the Lifting Leaders podcast show. Welcome to Lifting Leaders podcast, where we explore how to unleash leader possibilities to make a better world.
Hi, I'm Melanie Vargas, host of the podcast What's in Your Neighborhood, where we examine the neighborhoods we all carry within us, our inner landscapes, the hidden streets of burnout, work addiction, and identity shifts.
Hi, I'm Tricia Rhine, co-host of Lifting Leaders podcast, and today's episode is a little bit different and really special.
Instead of a traditional interview, we're coming together in conversation. There is so much synergy between our podcasts that we felt it was important to come together as podcasters, as leaders, and as humans navigating a complex world.
Lifting Leaders podcast, we've just stepped into a new phase of our work this year, Ignite Genuine Hope, where we're exploring how leaders can build trust, create belonging, and stay human in the midst of a lot of uncertainty.
And What's in Your Neighborhood is a new platform. We've not only launched a podcast, but we're building a space for anyone who has felt that they've had to wear a mask to be successful.
So today we're bringing those two worlds together.
You'll hear from all of us, not just asking questions, but stepping into them ourselves.
We'll explore courage, vulnerability, trust, and what it takes to create spaces where people can truly belong.
And ultimately, what it looks like to practice hope, not just an idea, but as something we actively create in our lives and our leadership.
We're so glad you're here. Let's step into the conversation.
And just one quick moment before we actually do that, I wanted to do just a really high-level introduction for those of us who are new to the different platforms. That's one of the cool things about this recording, this episode, is that both of our listening audiences will get to be introduced to a new person, a couple of new people. And so we are together, the three of us, we have a combined more than 100 years experience in leadership development. That means we're really old. Leadership development, organizational development, and HR. We are Hudson coaches. We've been coaching for about 8 years, and we're friends. And so it's pretty exciting. We are really excited to be able to support Melanie too in launching. It's only been a couple weeks, launching your new podcast. And I know you're having a lot of success already. So we're excited to be here to explore a few things with you together, but also here to support you in this new kind of adventure that you're on.
Well, thank you for that. It has been an adventure and a fun one at that, and I couldn't be more thrilled to be here with the two of you sharing this space today.
It feels like it should be this way all the time.
I know, it's fun. All right, so I've actually got the first question. So we're going to toss questions out, and then we're all going to talk about them. So to kick us off, what sparked each of us to start our podcasts? And what felt important enough to put our voices into the world? And Melanie, let's have you go first because you're new.
Yeah, that means so much to me. And thank you again for this idea. It's phenomenal. And, coming at a really great time for me because I did just launch my new podcast. And as I've been talking about my story, it's been good for me to really kind of think about how I am telling my story about why I launched the podcast. And really, it was a companion to a book that I wrote last year called What's in Your Neighborhood. Not published yet. It will be coming. But I kind of got a little writer's block. In other words, like I got stuck. And then for whatever reason, I felt like I wasn't getting it published. And it's a memoir. And it's a very personal, story where I share a lot of my traumas and tragedies in my life. And I realized all the different masks that I've worn in my life, and there's been a lot of them. And I thought to myself, what if I create a place where I invite other people who had a similar story to mine, or they've walked through some kind of adversity or tragedy or failure, pivot, whatever it is, did something bold in their lives, and they could share their own emotional neighborhood and how they've walked through that. And that was what inspired me to create the podcast. And also, I was hoping that maybe in doing that, it would allow me to share a little bit about my own emotional neighborhood, which would give me the courage to get the book out there.
I
So
love that.
rich.
A little bit of motivation too, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I love that, you were just sharing with us that you just finished an interview with somebody who was really inspirational. And that is so motivating too, I think, to hear other people and see other people share their stories. It makes it feel not so challenging, right? To be able to tell our own.
And in a way, it's somewhat of a validation point too. It's like you have your feelings, and it's kind of nice, not nice, but it's good to know that other people are navigating similar situations or something that is that impactful for them. And then being able to listen to the story and how they navigate can be very inspiring, I would think.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, you guys probably see this when you're, walking through stories with your guests. That one thing that I think has been, even just in the last month that I've been doing this, I see that we're all kind of, and I think my husband said this on his episode last week, that, everybody's fighting their own battle.
Yeah.
And whether they're in their organizations or their life, their personal lives, or in the world, that we're all sort of going through our own challenges. And so it's allowed me to show up with just a tremendous amount of compassion, not only for my guests who are having the courage to share their stories, but also for myself, the self compassion, and for the world and what we're navigating in our lives right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. Okay, to you, Tricia, you want to tell our story?
Yeah, I'll tell our story. I think for us, I don't even think I know for us, it was the fact that COVID started. And we actually started the podcast after the year of COVID. We were in a different podcast at that time, but we felt like things were not really changing so much with our leaders. They were still struggling because they had remote teams. They didn't know what people were doing. They weren't really sure how to use their skills in a remote fashion, and it was disorienting. And so, in an effort to help them use the skills they had, or grow some skills and grow some strengths that would help them be successful or feel successful, we decided to put the podcast together to lift leaders' capabilities so that they could tackle some of the most critical issues that are going on in the world, and in a way that is maybe not the word sustainable, but perhaps evolutionary in a sense. And I think we've done that. We spent a few years really focusing on just that, and then we launched something even more compelling for us. And I think it was our vision to work with hope. Because we were finding that no matter how much we put out there for leaders to help them, we weren't seeing anybody getting more hopeful or happier. They were still burnt out. They were still dealing with issues. So that's our story. That's where we started the podcast. And I think it's so important. I want us to continue doing this as long as we have people who are really great leaders who are struggling. It's like a mission now, right? It's our purpose.
Yeah.
I know I've personally been inspired by your work in this area. I know I've told the two of you that, but I've had moments where I have hit a real low in the last 6-7 years around this, what's happening in the world and all the ambiguity. And your work and hope has pulled me through that and given me inspiration to keep moving. And the other thing I was thinking about as you were talking, Tricia, is just regardless of our age in our generation, it's like, this is such an important message. I see it in my kids because I have millennial um, and God, why can't think of my younger kids' generation?
The Z's.
The Gen Zs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just kind of blanked out there for a moment. And just watching the impact that it's had on them and their lives. And so this work and hope, I think, is so important. Yeah.
We're seeing the word battered around quite a bit now, but I haven't seen more than surface level responses about it. And so to me, it is something that we really do need to dig into and help people understand what it is. It's not, it's a verb,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's
an
also a
action.
noun.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
our purpose, which we stayed really true to, is to unleash leader possibilities to make a better world. So we kind of had an evolution ourselves from starting just, we actually had another podcast, and it was solely focused on leadership development. And when we started Lifting Leaders podcast, we realized that what we really wanted to do was to really focus on these critical issues of what's going on in the world. And I'm really glad that we made that shift.
I am too.
Yeah.
Such an important shift. And just thinking about leaders, one thing, and these are your words, Kristal, because I've heard you say this so many times in the work that we've done together, but that everybody is a leader.
Yeah.
And, that we need more leaders. We need more leadership in the world, and that we can all be leaders. And so it really resonates with such a broad audience, the work that you're doing. And so thank you. Thank you for the amazing work that you're doing.
Well, we need to be thankful for you too, Melanie. I mean, look at it. You've been on my podcast before for a reason. You have a compelling story and people need to hear it. And we've had quite a few hits whenever you've been on because it matters. You have a style that people listen to very well and they, they take it seriously. Like you give hard information or difficult information in a way that makes it very palatable for folks. So, I'm very grateful that we've had you on our podcast before.
So I'm going to
Thank
ask
you.
the second part of that question because I think it may generate some interesting comments. As fellow podcasters, what has surprised us most about what happens when we create space for people's stories to be heard? You can go first. You want to go first?
I'm happy to go first. I've had so many surprises. For me, probably the one that stands out the most is that when we are willing to be vulnerable, in fact, we just talked about this. I mentioned the Amy Nelson episode that's coming up, and how raw and real she was sharing her story. And when we are willing to put ourselves out there, a lot of times I think we when we're going through something, whatever it is in our lives, that we feel like we have to battle it out on our own.
Yeah.
And if we're willing to put it out there, there is magic that happens because one, it opens up permission for other people to do the same, and that we're actually not alone. There are so many of us out there that have similar stories, and this idea of building community is so important, especially right now in the world. And when we can share whatever it is, and that we don't feel like we have to be quiet and guarded with those things that we're going through, and then putting it out there and sharing raw and real stories with each other means that we can also validate each other's experiences and really show up for each other.
Yeah. It's true. I often hear people say, I'm just throwing it out to the universe, right? I'm throwing it out there. And that's the whole point, is saying it out loud, right? And being heard by others. It makes it a little less scary. It's not as painful because now it's not sitting there, churning. It's actually been out there. And often you get answers or you get advice that can be so helpful.
Yeah. Ours is also, I would say, as far as when we think about purpose, is about building community. And that's really been a theme from a lot of our guests too, is that when we think about making a better world, you can't do it alone. You have to do it in community with other people. And the more that we can do that, the more that we can sort of walk beside others that are also trying to make a better world, the more impact we're going to have. And we're able to hold that hope in a lot better way than just when we're spinning inside our own head.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that, it's just that being vulnerable and showing people it's okay. It's absolutely okay. In fact, it's not just okay. It's making a difference.
Yeah.
And that's what we're here for, right?
Yeah. So one of the things that really surprised me when we created a space for people's stories to be heard was the impact on the guests.
Mm-hmm.
So, the whole purpose is we're doing it for our listeners, right? And we think about the impact on the listener. But one of the things that we have found is that, and maybe it's because we're coaches, I don't know. So you might have the same experience, but in holding space for people to have a conversation about what they do and what they believe and their passion really gives them like additional confidence in who they are. Sometimes they're working through some things, and we've actually seen people who've been on the podcast really like take off once they've been on the podcast. And we're not taking any credit for that. It's not because we have, 6 million listeners. It's the experience of being the guest and really sort of living into their possibilities. And that has been really rewarding for us to be able to see that. And we're picky about who we have on our podcast. So we know these are voices that we want to lift up, and so that other people can see it. And so we're happy that these people that we think more people should hear them and see them, that they get that exposure, but they go beyond. They go beyond that, and they sort of embody it for themselves. And that's been really fun.
Yeah, I think to me, it almost feels like the courage to launch. It's like all of a sudden they say, okay, I've gone this far, I've done this, I can make another step. I can take another small, brave move, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I love that happens. And we've had a couple of guests who have really done well. And I know it's not because of us, but I'd like to believe that we had something to do with it.
Yeah. Well, and they've said that, right? Mm-hmm. They've come back and said, because of this experience.
And we'll keep asking.
It gave me the confidence. It helped me create the story that I needed for myself to be able to tell it to other people, like those sorts of things. It was just, and it's just really satisfying. Yeah.
Beautiful. I was thinking about what you said about your guests, and it's so true, because I don't think that was even just hearing you say that I guess that is something that I would take away from this experience too, is just the space that we create for them. And that when you can tell your story and say it out loud, and you have someone cueing you on the areas to double click on, a lot of times you see things, you have an awareness there that you didn't even know was there, similar to the space that we provide in coaching.
Yeah.
Right? We can ask questions, and sometimes a really simple question can hit you in a way that is going to impact you. I mean, that happened to me. It's how I wrote the book. I had one coaching question, peer to peer, hit me. It changed my life. And we just never know the impact that we're going to have by asking a question, whether it's podcasting or coaching or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%.
So since we've been touching on this idea of vulnerability, I was curious, what did we have to kind of shift through internally when we were starting and beginning? And where are we still being asked to be courageous and vulnerable in those spaces?
Yeah, I can sort of go down that road. I know that podcasters love being in front of their microphones, but in the beginning, I had a horrible time trying to get okay in my head with the idea of speaking into a microphone to a bunch of people. I had no idea who they were, where they're coming from, what their motives were, or anything. And it kind of felt very vulnerable to me because I never really liked my voice. And so to put it out there was a little frightening. And I think that in our first podcast that we did before, I don't think I ever got over that. I stumbled through everything. I was afraid to to speak too boldly because I thought I just didn't have the skills to do that. And it was funny. I had probably the most experience of anybody in the room, but I just couldn't talk about it. So when we started this one, I think what happened for me was when we sat down and really talked about our purpose and our values and all the things that really mattered to us. And I stopped worrying so much about what's sitting in front of my mouth and more about why we're sitting here doing this at all. And that mattered so much. And, it didn't hurt. And it didn't hurt to have guests who kept us engaged and really on task instead of thinking about the mechanics of what we're doing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm have introverted tendencies, so I do a lot of processing internally. And one of the things that I really wanted to get out of having a podcast, in addition to all the more altruistic things, was to be able to speak my ideas more clearly and more quickly, to be able to keep a conversation going and do less of the spinning and thinking. And so that was really scary for me too. The magic of editing helps a lot. Knowing that you can edit, you can shorten pauses and things like that. It's so funny because Brene Brown, who I think does an amazing job with when she had her podcast, I don't think she has it anymore, but maybe she does. They teased her and called it the pause cast because she does the thinking part. It's hard to just like keep that conversation going. So I think that has been, just from a development perspective for me, it's helped me a lot to be able to just let thoughts come rather than be thinking and then speaking. And I think, similar to Tricia, you don't actually know who's listening. And so it's just interesting to put it out there. And you're lucky if you get people who will give comments back, or you might even run into somebody who says, "Oh, I loved your podcast." And that's really cool. But mostly you're just putting it out there and being able to get over that idea of, what if somebody doesn't like it, or they don't like my opinion, and being able to give a strong opinion.
Haters.
Yeah, the haters, right? And you're always going to have them.
Mm-hmm.
And just sort of holding on to the notion that, if they don't like it, they don't have to listen. They can turn it off. And we're not for everybody. And that's okay. That's okay. We're not trying to be all things to all people. And so that helps me too. It's like the people who like us are going to listen, and they're going to enjoy it, and they're going to get something out of it. And the people who don't, that's okay. They can find something else. And that's also the cool thing about podcasting. I feel like it's not competitive. It's like what's right for one person is not going to be right for somebody else.
That's right.
We can all be our own individual in this podcast world. So those were some of the things that I had to overcome around being courageous. Yeah.
I remember you sharing those words with me, Kristal, when I was starting out, around like everyone's different and you can just do this in your own way. And it was really helpful for me. It's funny, Tricia, that you mention the sound of your voice for a couple of different reasons. One, I love the sound of your voice. I know I have said that. Same with Kristal. Like, I love listening to the two of you. Your voice is so soothing to me. I mean, both of your voices are soothing, but it's one of the first things I noticed about you when I met you is the sound of your voice.
Oh my goodness, thank you. Wow.
I know a lot of people that would say that. The second thing about that is it is the thing for me. And I have a couple funny things to say about that. One, I'm doing my own producing and editing and all that. And so I have to listen to myself for hours. That was another surprise for me, actually.
Yeah.
And I hate the sound of my voice. I've always hated the sound of my voice because I'm born and raised Texan. And I don't feel like I sound that way until I listen to my voice. And then I hear the twang in there. And the funny part of that is that, and I end up over editing because I hate my voice so much. But the funny part about that is, and you mentioned Brene Brown, because I have had at least 100 people tell me that I sound like Brene Brown. So now I'm like fine with the twang. I'm like, if people think I sound like Brene Brown, I'm A-okay with it because I have a little girl crush on Brene Brown. So I'm it's a big compliment for me. And it's like these things that people say, these little tiny things will keep us
Yeah.
going. But yeah, that was one that I really had to get through internally for myself, is just knowing that I'm going to be listening to myself for hours and hours and hours. And it's okay if I have a kind of and a like and an in there.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's an important part of the pause.
Yeah.
The pause is sometimes necessary, and the way we speak just naturally is okay,
Yeah.
and people will expect to hear that.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you do have a lovely voice.
You do.
And I'm
I
not
agree.
saying that in the Mutual Admiration Society here. It's absolutely a wonderful voice, and it's one people want to listen to. And so you may think you sound like you have a twang. My father had a twang. This was a man who left Texas when he was 11. He died when he was 82. And on his last few days, he said, "Where are we going? What are we going to do?" It was like, why? Why? He always put the H in front of the W, and that was something all of his people did in Texas. So you're doing great.
And
Yeah.
y'all, I think is so much better than any other way of saying it, because it's just one syllable, y'all.
That's right.
Better.
That's right.
The other thing I was thinking about as we were going through some of those stories, and what helped us shift to being more courageous and vulnerable, is how we've all been stretched, whether it's as humans or as leaders, when we think about our podcasting. And I know for me personally, this is, I mean, Kristal, you touched on this when you were sharing a little bit about your journey with how you describe the internal stuff and having to, say your speak with more clarity and intention, and pulling yourself through that. For me, it's stretched me because it's allowed me to have a little more confidence. And part of that is accepting that I'm not going to be a one size fits all. Not everyone is going to like what I have to say, and not everyone is going to be okay with what I'm putting out there and how much I'm tapping into people's traumas and tragedies. And that's okay too.
Right.
And just accepting that, and not letting it draw out some of the parts of me, or the saboteur voices that I need to be liked by all, or that I need to please everybody. And I'm okay with that. It's made me, I think, a better human going through this process, because I still believe in my story. Even if it just helps one person that listens, then I feel like I want to keep doing it.
It's so cool. It makes me think that podcasters are really, the whole job of podcasting is to kick that imposter syndrome out the door, right? I mean, a lot of us have it in many ways, but when you're sitting in front of a microphone talking to people you have no idea about, and you're being vulnerable, you are actually doing a little bit of self-work here. I think it's all about
absolutely.
self-work,
Yeah.
right?
I think even reaching out to the guests,
Mhm.
I still struggle with that, depending on who that is. I don't want to get rejected. I don't want somebody to say, you're not big enough for us. And we have people who say that,
Mhm.
that come back and say, best of luck, but you're not, you're not in the million listener stratosphere. It's like, all right, that's okay. But then we do have some people who say yes. And so it's always a bit of a gamble, and whoever comes onto the show are the right people. That's what I believe.
Well, it's good
Yeah.
for us. It's good for you, Melanie, because you don't have to have a million listeners to be eligible to nominate for some of the awards that there are for podcasters. We'll talk about that another time. But
I was going to
yes,
say, we're going to have a conversation about
you
that.
got it. You got it.
Yeah.
So when you think about leadership, and I'm asking you, Melanie, this question specifically first, what does it mean to create a sense of neighborhood? Because you've used that as your platform, right? Neighborhood, and a place where people feel they belong. Is that true?
Yeah. I mean, I wrote the book in the metaphor of a neighborhood, and every chapter is centered around the concept of a neighborhood. And for me, there's so many elements of it. And probably, like, I have one chapter in my book that's like around building a new garden. And if you think about the metaphor of a garden, what's in a garden? You got weeds in there. It's like there's always a new thing that you can put in your garden. And for me, it goes so much deeper than that I create a sense of that I'm creating this platform or this community where people that have stories like mine will feel like they have a place. Because for most of my life, I felt like I had to hide behind a number of different masks. One was because I've been in recovery from addiction for decades. And early on in my life, I felt like I had to hide that. There was so much stigmatism around it. And I mean, there is still, frankly, some. And so I pretended to be something. And that was a mask I wore. And, and then, I could go on and on about the different masks, that some of the stuff from my childhood, I felt like I had to hide behind because I didn't feel like I was worthy or that I belonged in a certain space. And it actually led to decades of, achievement addiction and work addiction, where my identity was part of that and how hard I've had to fight, in the last decade or so to do a lot of a deeper level of work on myself to remove some of those masks and just be okay with who I am, authentic and real, just me, just putting it all out there and being, and I'm still healing from a lot of that stuff, a lot of those masks and those stories that I have about myself. I think it's where like imposter syndrome and inner critic and all that stuff is formed because we feel like we have to adapt to our environment or to the organization or to this idea. And no, we just have to show up with our own selves and be authentic and real, just who we are.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
One of the challenges right now, I think, in our world is that I think there was a lot of progress. We have a long ways to go. But with current realities going on, people are having to put more of those masks back on. And as leaders, it's so important. And as you were talking, Melanie, everyone's a leader. It's like we have to go first around these things. And we have to consider who's in the room and who's not in the room. And how do we make sure that those people are invited and feel like they can belong as well, and sort of center those experiences, those of the most marginalized people, make sure that we've centered that when we're actually creating programs and policies and those sort of things to make sure it works for them first. And if it does, it's going to work for the rest of us. So I feel like it's just been such a challenging time that we're living in right now, where a lot of the progress that we've made is just being torn down.
It's so true. I think what you said really resonated for me around like what is happening in the world and this idea of a neighborhood and that I can choose my own neighborhood. If I don't like it, I don't belong in every neighborhood. And also, I may create a whole story about that. I can create a space where I am inviting people in, regardless of their background, regardless of their identity, and that it is up to me to create that space of belonging. I do think it's the most challenging time in the world to stay true to who you are. It goes back to the mask that we feel that we have to put on this mask because of what is happening. We come from a time as women decades ago where we had to put on this mask to be invited to the table, or we felt we had to, right? And how we have for our entire careers had to break that down. And, here we are feeling like we have to fight that battle
All
a little
over
bit
again.
again.
Yeah.
It is interesting.
Well,
Yeah.
it is taking it back to the mask. It's that courage to pull the mask off and actually be the first one to talk, be vulnerable. And it's uncomfortable, especially right now, because the people who would have normally done that in the past, to your points about, we have to do it again now after all these years. It's not just women, it's everyone having to step up and speak their truth, speak their heart. And it's dangerous to do that right now. It feels dangerous. And I can't wait for things to change, because maybe the battle is great. It builds resilience. It builds a lot of, great leadership. But at the same time, it breaks down so many things. And not just, I'd like it to be just breaking down barriers, but the reality is it's breaking down some of our freedoms and things that we have probably taken for granted for too long, but we shouldn't be having it stripped from us. And it kind of feels that way for me right now. One of the vulnerabilities I think is so important with us as podcasters is to be able to say that. Kristal and I always kind of put all of the, what's going on in today's world on the back burner because we didn't feel comfortable bringing it out in the open. We didn't think it really was relevant to what we want to do, but now it seems imperative.
Yeah.
And so it's a very different world right now. And so I really love the whole metaphor of the mask. And it's not like I love the mask, but that's essentially what we see now is everybody walking around. It's sort of like COVID times 100, right? It's interesting.
One of the, I was thinking back about where have I actually seen this done well. And I worked with a CEO who was incredibly respectful to all people. And he would ride up in the elevator with, he would just come in, take the elevator with everybody else, not the special sort of executive elevator where close to his office. And he'd start at one end of the building and he'd talk to the people that were in the elevator and not even just about work, but just, how are you doing? And how's your family? And then all the way down the building, he would stop in at people's offices and ask them how they're doing. And, what can I do to support you? And it took a little while, but it didn't take an enormous amount of time. And the impact that it made on people was tremendous because it built trust. They got a chance to actually say how things were going for them. And he got a sense, unfiltered, of how the organization was actually doing. So it was just a real win-win. And I felt like you knew it was a core value of his to have engaged employees and to build trust and to respect people. And he modeled that every single day.
If I'm thinking the same CEO you're talking about, I think I am. He used to be very uncomfortable speaking in front of crowds. And we have a lot of those meetings. So for the first few years he was there, it was almost uncomfortable watching him present because he would definitely be reading. He doesn't do that any longer. And what I love to see now is that employees don't look at him as, oh, the CEO's coming through the room. It's more like, oh, there's Steve. It's amazing the transition that's taken place just by him walking around and connecting, right? It's that neighborhood in a way, in a different way, but it is essentially walking through the neighborhood and checking in to see how people are doing it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Simple act. Yeah. Make a big difference. How about you? Where have you seen it done well?
As you were talking, Kristal, I was thinking about humility and how important that is as a leadership trait. And the other thing I was thinking about is empathy. And I coach so many leaders that see their empathy as a weakness. I think especially as women, it's been conditioned out of us that in order to rise, we have to kind of, fit in to work with men. We have to squash that part of us. And I see it in men too that have strong empathy. It's not just isolated to women, but that the very thing that we view as a weakness is actually the most important leadership trait that we have. And especially in today's world, if we think about what's happening right now, that hearing each other, that was one thing that I heard from your CEO, and the ability to put ourselves in someone else's shoes, that is what empathy is. And it's just an incredible strength. I wish we talked about that more, that it is a strength. It is not a weakness. And that we need that in today's leaders.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is some science on that coming out, by the way. There's a lot of research being done. It's one of the most important leadership traits you can have right now.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I was thinking about how complex and uncertain this world is that we're living in right now. And if you think about the complexity that leaders are navigating right now, what helps you personally stay grounded, present, and human?
Yeah. I think for me, I start just with the foundational pieces, because I find if I'm out of whack on that, nothing else matters. And so I really have to get my sleep. I need to make sure that I'm exercising every day, at least getting out for a walk, that I'm, filling my body with nutritious food, um, that I get out and connect with people. So I know the three of us anyway, we do a lot of work from home. And for me, that can feel isolating after a while, even though I have a lot of interaction online. And so making sure that I've built that into my clients, even built it into my personal life, that I'm having time for relationships and building relationships. So all of those kind of things, journaling, meditating, making sure I'm taking care of myself first so that I can show up in whatever I'm doing in the world in a way that I can be proud of.
How about you, Tricia?
I think self-care is like number one for most people right now, especially.
Yeah.
For me, I think it's having a trusted team of a network. I need a network of people who don't necessarily have to agree with me on absolutely everything, but that I trust because I know it's not going anywhere. I know I can talk through something and I'm not going to be judged. That's important for me, I think, more now than ever before. I feel like I need to be able to articulate what's going on in my head and my heart sometimes. And so if I can do that with people I trust, we can bat it around or we can let it go. I mean, sometimes I have one network member who will just say, is this really something you're going to like spin on? You're getting a little twisted here. Do you really need to be that twisted? And when I think about it, it's not until I say it and he says something like that I realize, yeah, it's probably over the top. I probably don't need to be thinking about that so much. But other times it becomes a conversation that helps me make right some of the things that aren't right inside. How about you, Melanie?
There's two things that really stand out for me, and they're both actually things that I've learned in my own recovery. And the first one is like in my recovery program, we have this something called the Serenity Prayer, and really the idea around it is that we accept things that we can't control, and that we have courage to change the things that we can. And whether it's in an organization or my personal life, that is something that I really try to practice because there's a whole lot in the world I can't control. There's a lot in my own family system that I can't control. And then this idea of radical acceptance. And I spend a lot of time on that because if I am in fear, if I am angry, I am not accepting. And I have to look at my part in that, because there are a lot of things I want. I mean, I would like to play the puppeteer in the two of your lives to help you, resolve all your things. And the reality is I can't do that. Even with the people I love, I can't fix it or change it or make it land softer. And so that, I have to accept it for the way it is and accept that my family members are resourceful and they can solve their own problems. The other piece that I was thinking about that's incredibly useful to me is just staying in the present, the here and now. And that's a big recovery concept too, that usually if I'm having anxiety or fear, it's because I'm either focused on something that happened in the past, so the rearview mirror, or I'm looking way too far ahead at the future. And there's a whole lot I don't know. And I am going to be very unhappy if I'm focused on the future of all the things that may or may not happen. And chances are those things are probably not going to happen. And so staying in the here and now, I'm just a lot happier. And I do feel more serenity and more grounded when I'm in the here and now, right in this little space with the two of you who I adore. And I'm not thinking about the things that may or may not happen in the future. And I feel more hopeful. I mean, bringing it back to hope, I frankly feel more hopeful when I'm not worried about those things.
I love what you said. And I think about what we said when we started this podcast and how we wanted to help leaders do things in ways that were going to help the world be a better place. And that sometimes implies looking to the future. But when I think about what we talk about in our podcast, it's never about that. It's always about right now. So what you're saying is so beautiful because that's something that I think we all could learn from. Instead of wasting time and energy worrying about something that happened long ago in some cases, and you can't change that, right? And not looking so far into the future because it's all wrapped up in assumption or it's all wrapped up in something you can't do anything about yet. Anyway, you haven't had your present experiences yet to make the future come to what you want it to be. So it's just, I don't know if that made any sense, but it made sense to me. It's like a foreshadow almost, and we just don't need it. It doesn't help you right now.
Yeah. Beautiful. A lot of times we just want to rush past whatever it is that's happening. And especially when we're uncomfortable or we're in the middle of the, your famous words, Kristal, being in the messy middle where we're going through some challenge or some discomfort or some big thing that we're in. We don't want to sit with it. We want to keep ourselves busy or rush right past it, the discomfort of it. And sometimes like sitting in the discomfort is a thing that we need to do. It goes back to being in the present. The present may be uncomfortable and sucky, but you know what? I have to sit with it. And being there in it is oftentimes the gift, whatever suffering I'm feeling in that moment. And remembering that there is a gift in this thing that I'm in.
And you've always impressed me as being someone who sees things with gratitude. So even if it's something that is negative or it's a terrible place to be at some time in the future, when you look back on it, often I've heard you say things about being grateful for having gone through an experience. So to me, that's the key right there, is being able to look at something that was less than stellar and saying, you know what, I learned so much in that. And I feel like I'm more resilient now, or I feel like I can handle this because I have a different perspective, right? It changes the way we see it.
100%.
So if we're able to do all these things and remember them, right, in the moment, what's possible now? What's possible now for leaders and for ourselves?
It's the hope in it all, right? There's limitless possibilities. When I look at my own story and the things that kept me stuck, it always comes back to fear, and if there is no fear, there's only possibility. Same thing with the uncertainty in the world. Yes, we're living in it. And going back to staying in the present, we're learning how to live in uncertainty. And if I could either step into fear about the things that may or may not happen, or I can remove that. And then I'm only shifting into possibility because it's limitless. Yeah, that's how I see it.
Yeah. We were all in a conference last week, and Pam McLean talked a little bit about liminal space, that it's no longer, like it's no longer, not now, and not yet. It's the space between those two. And sometimes I feel like that space does bring hope because we don't know what is not yet. And there is so much possibility there, even when we can't see it and we don't know what it is. So it does, as you were saying, Melanie, around, it can feel uncomfortable, but if we can hold the hope, then good things can happen. Like you said, there's possibilities that we may not have even considered yet.
And I think that hope and possibility are what makes it possible to step over that threshold, right? It's courage. You talked about fear being the thing that keeps you from moving through that, right? And I believe that we are learning to be more courageous because we may not have a choice. And so learning through, stepping through, keeping your eyes on the positive side of things, or keeping your head in a space that allows for the positive to happen instead of holding you back with the fear or the negative of what it could be. It could make anything possible. I mean, we have no idea what's ahead of us. We have absolutely no idea. And how amazing that might be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking, especially because you brought up Pam, two things that you guys said. One is you talked about thresholds, Tricia, and that was the topic of our conference last week. And how Pam's words are like, I don't know if you guys feel this way. I hang on every word. And one of the things that I hear pretty consistently is her voice around staying a little longer. Just stay a little longer. If we could all just stay, it reminds me of my own discomfort and how I don't like it. I do not like things that feel uncomfortable. And I think that is part of my addiction history, that even still after 3 decades, if something bad is happening, I want to rush to an immediate gratification, a numbing, something. And the truth is, I'll hear Pam say, just stay a little longer. It's like, I actually need to be in this. And the same thing with the world. We need to be in this. For whatever reason, there is learning in this thing. There is learning in failure. There is learning in a challenge. And if I can remember that in the moment, that's the key. Stay a little longer, then it's not going to feel as awful when I'm going through it.
And we can do it together. I mean, that's that piece, right? That community, the neighborhood of the larger neighborhood. We have the internal neighborhood, but also the external. Do it together.
What's one small step somebody listening could take this week to build more connection, trust, or hope in their own neighborhood?
I'll take that one. Or at least I'll take it first. I love that question. And I think about Kristal's question that I hear frequently is like, what's one little thing you could do right now? I think it's different for all of us. I don't have the one step for everyone else. I only have my own one step. And for me, it goes back to what I said earlier about staying in the moment. Because I can spin out. I can get off this podcast, have one thing happen and start spinning out. Even though we just had this beautifully grounded hour. And if I remind myself that I just have to focus on what's happening right this minute, in this current time at 12:40 p.m. PST, all I have to do is stay in the here and now. And I don't need to worry about my kids' futures or what may or may not happen in their lives, because it's all going to be okay. And, the thing I'm worried about, there's a very large chance that it's not going to happen. Yeah.
I think it's to reach out and have a hopeful conversation with somebody. It's so easy for us to actually go down the dark hole these days. There's so much fodder to stay there. And it's okay to start there. We want to be real. But to make a commitment to say, what am I going to do here that's going to help bring hope for us? That is going to take a small action to make a difference, and be super intentional about that. It's to say, I'm not going to leave this conversation until we've sort of figured out something that we can have hope around. And even if it is, as you were saying, Melanie, even it is looking down and, being grateful for the beautiful flowers that are here this spring, whatever it is that you need, but to leave the conversation a little more inspired and connected with someone else. And so to be able to do that for yourself, but also to carry it forward with the community, whatever community it is that you're living in.
That's such a beautiful message. I was just getting this image as you were sharing your story around hope, Kristal, of going back to the garden metaphor. And that when you build your own garden and you have this amazing community, and Tricia touched on this earlier around building community, that you actually generate hope for other people too. And, that we have these like-minded people that we can surround ourselves with. And that gives me hope when I'm around my people, and that we need our people. You guys are my people. I definitely want you in my garden. And my world is just better with you in it. It's a much more beautiful garden when there's more flowers than just my one flower.
You've seen my garden, haven't you? No. One flower. No, for me, it's like, I think both of you touched on a lot of great points. One is taking care of yourself, for one thing. No matter how you get up feeling this morning or tomorrow morning or whatever, be sure to take some time on the front end of taking care of yourself, because that can really change your attitude as you walk into the day, and not anticipating so much. Just live in the moment, be present for a little while, and just see what happens when you do that. It's amazing what we miss. It's just amazing to me what we miss by not really navigating our lives, but just going on autopilot, if you will.
Be a traveler, not a tourist in your life.
Right. That's right. Oh my goodness, that was poignant. And it's true.
We're referencing one of our previous podcasts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but it's important. I think it's very important.
Well, I'm feeling more inspired and hopeful. That's for sure.
I just love this combination.
It was fun.
I
It was
know.
really fun.
Indeed.
So, as we close today's conversation, we want to leave you with something simple but powerful.
Leading from the inside, your emotional intelligence, your emotional neighborhood is what's needed in this next era.
And hope, trust, and belonging don't happen by accident.
They're created moment by moment through how we invest in our own development and how we show up with others.
So, here's our invitation to you.
What's one small step you can take this week to build more awareness, more authenticity, or more hope in your neighborhood?
Maybe it's starting a conversation.
Or simply choosing to show up with a little more presence and intention.
Because those small moments, they ripple.
They shape the kind of world we're all part of creating. Thanks for being a part of this conversation.
You can find this episode on both the Lifting Leaders podcast
And what's in your neighborhood.
Until next time.
Until next
Thank you,
time.
Melanie, for going on this adventure with us. It's new, I think, for both of us to have a shared podcast. And it was really fun.
It was beautifully fun. I can't wait for us to see what it looks like on the other side.
Listen, any amount of time that I get with the two of you is joyful time for me. So thank you for coming up with this fabulous idea and sharing this space with
And
me
best
today.
of luck on the podcast. I know you're already having great success.
Well, I appreciate that. And just the two of you inspire me in so many ways with the work that you're doing. And you've just both been mentors to me in my life and the podcast and every area of my life. So appreciate you both
too.
so much.
Love you.
Thank you for joining us today. As you head back in your day, we invite you to notice what's happening in your own neighborhood, at work, at home, or inside yourself. Change often starts close to home, and sometimes the smallest shift in awareness can create the biggest ripple. If something in today's conversation stayed with you, we'd love for you to carry it forward and share it with someone else who might need it too. And if you're finding value in these conversations, it would mean a lot to us if you subscribed and left a review. We're just getting started, and your support really helps us grow the community. Until next time, take care of yourself and each other.